Hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us. Picking up in the middle of the chapter of Surely Goodness and Mercy Shall Follow Me, chapter 11 of Philip Keller's book, A Shepherd Looks at Psalms 23. With all this in view, it is then proper to ask myself, is this outflow of goodness and mercy for me to stop and stagnate in my life? Is there no way in which it can pass on through me to benefit others? Yes, there is a way, and this aspect is one which eludes many of us. There is a positive, practical aspect in which my life in turn should be one whereby goodness and mercy follow in my footsteps for the well-being of others. Just as God's goodness and mercy flow to me all the days of my life, so goodness and mercy should follow me, should be left behind me as a legacy to others wherever I may go. It is worth reiterating at this point that sheep can, under mismanagement, be the most destructive livestock. In short order, they can ruin and ravage land almost without remedy. But in bold contrast, they can, on the other hand, be the most beneficial of all livestock if properly managed. Their manure is the best balanced of any produced by domestic stock. When scattered efficiently over the pastures, it proves of enormous benefit to the soil. The sheep's habit of seeking the highest rise of ground on which to rest ensures that the fertility from the rich lowland is redeposited on the less productive higher ground. No other livestock will consume as wide a variety of herbage. Sheep eat all sorts of weeds and other undesirable plants which might otherwise invade a field. For example, they love the buds and tender tips of Canada thistle, which, if not controlled, can quickly become a most noxious weed. In a few years a flock of well-managed sheep will clean up and restore a piece of ravaged land, as no other creature can do. In ancient literature, sheep were referred to as those of the golden hooves, simply because they were regarded and esteemed so highly for their beneficial effect on the land. In my own experience as a sheep rancher, I have in just a few years seen 2 derelict ranches restored to high productivity and usefulness. More than this, what before appeared as depressing eyesores became beautiful park-like properties of immense worth. Where previously there had been only poverty and pathetic waste, there now followed flourishing fields and rich abundance. In other words, goodness and mercy had followed my flocks. They left behind them something worthwhile, a productive, beautiful, and beneficial to both themselves, others, and me. Where they had walked, there followed fertility and weed-free land. Where they had lived, there remained beauty and abundance. The question now comes to me pointedly, is this true of my life? Do I leave a blessing and a benediction behind me? Lord Alfred Tennyson wrote in one of his classic poems, "The good men do lives after them." On one occasion 2 friends spent a few days in our home while passing through en route to some engagements in the East. They invited me to go along. After several days on the road, one of the men missed his hat. He was sure it had been left in our home. He asked me to write my wife and to find it and kindly send it on to him. Her letter of reply was one I shall never forget. One sentence in particular made an enormous impact on me. I have combed the house from top to bottom, and can find no trace of the hat. The only thing those men left behind was a great blessing. Is this the way that people feel about me? Do I leave a trail of sadness or of gladness behind? Is my memory in other people's minds entwined with mercy and goodness, or would they rather forget me altogether? Do I deposit a blessing behind me, or am I a bane to others? Is my life a pleasure to people or a pain? In Isaiah 52:7 we read, "How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of them that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace." Sometimes it is profitable to ask ourselves such simple questions as, do I leave behind peace in lives or turmoil? Do I leave behind forgiveness or bitterness? Do I leave behind contentment or conflict? Do I leave behind flowers of joy or frustration? Do I leave behind love or rancor? Some people leave such a sorry mess behind them wherever they go that they prefer to cover their tracks. For the true child of God, the one under the shepherd's care, there should never be any sense of shame or fear in going back to where they've lived or been before. Why? Because they've left a legacy of uplift, encouragement, and inspiration to others. In Africa, where I spent so many years, one of the greatest marks left by any man was that of David Livingstone. No matter where his footsteps took him, through the bush and plains of the great continent, there remained the impact of his love. Natives whose language he had never learned, long years after, remembered him as the kindly, tender doctor whom goodness and mercy had followed all the days of his life. There remains in my own mind boyhood recollections of the first stories I was told about Jesus Christ as a man amongst us. His life was summed up in the simple, terse, but profound statement, "He went about doing good." It was as though this was the loftiest, noblest, most important thing on which he could possibly spend his few short years. But I also was deeply impressed by the fact that his good and kindly acts were always commingled with mercy. Where so often other human beings are rude and harsh and vindictive of one another, his compassion and tenderness was always apparent. Even the most flagrant sinners found forgiveness with him. Whereas at the hands of their fellow men they knew only condemnation, censure, and cruel criticism. And again I have to ask myself, is this my attitude towards other people? Do I sit up on my pedestal of self-pride and look with contempt upon my contemporaries? Or do I get down and identify myself with them in their dilemma, and there extend a small measure of the goodness and mercy given to me by my Master? Do I see sinners with the compassion of Christ, or with the critical eye of censure? Am I willing to overlook faults and weaknesses in others and extend forgiveness as God has forgiven me of my failings? The only real practical measure of my appreciation for the goodness and mercy of God to me is the extent to which I am, in turn, prepared to show goodness and mercy to others. If I am unable to forgive and extend friendship to fallen men and women, then it is quite certain I know little or nothing, in a practical sense, of Christ's forgiveness and mercy to me. It is this lack of love among Christians which today makes the church an insipid, lukewarm institution. People come to church to find affection, and they are turned off by our tepidity. But the man or woman who knows firsthand about the goodness and mercy of God in his own life will be warm and affectionate with goodness and mercy towards others. This is the benefit to them, but equally important, it is a blessing to God. Yes, a blessing to God. Most of us think only God can bring a blessing to us. The Christian life is a two-way proposition. Nothing pleased me more than to see my flock flourish and prosper. It delighted me personally to no end to feel compensated for the care that I had given them. To see them content was wonderful. To see the land benefiting was beautiful. And the two together made me a happy man. It enriched my own life. It was a reward for my efforts and energy. In this experience, I received full compensation for all that I had poured into the endeavor. Most of us forget that our shepherd is looking for some satisfaction as well. We are told that he looked upon the travail of his soul and was satisfied. This is the benefit we can bring to him. He looks on my life in tenderness, for he loves me deeply. He sees the long years during which his goodness and mercy have followed me without slackening. He longs to see the same measure of that same goodness and mercy not only passed on to others by me, but also passed back to him with joy. He longs for love. He longs for my love. And I love him only and because he first loved me. Then he is satisfied. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life.